Hi, I'm Mrs. Walkie, and I'm going to be reading Chapter 19, James's Problem. For the past 2 days, Marvin had worried about what to do on Wednesday afternoon. Mama and Papa had made their position clear. There were to be no more trips to the Met and no more drawings.
"It's James's problem now," Papa said. "He's a bright boy. He'll figure out something."
"I know this is important to you, darling," Mama added soothingly, "but you can't take the risk. It affects all of us." Marvin said nothing, quietly fretting and hoping that some brilliant solution would occur to him before Carl came back at 4 o'clock on Wednesday. By 3 o'clock on Wednesday, no such solution had appeared, and Marvin hadn't even seen James since Monday. "I want to go to James's room," Marvin told his parents. "Even if I can't help him, I have to see what's going to happen." Mama and Papa looked doubtfully at each other.
Papa said, "I don't think that's a good idea, Marvin. It will only make this harder for you."
"But what about James? He won't understand. He thinks I'm coming." Mama shook her head. "Marvin, darling, there's no way to explain this to James. Your father is right. He'll have to figure it out on his own." "Mama, please." Marvin felt like crying. All he could think of was James, excitedly getting ready for the Met, sure that Marvin would be right there alongside him. "I can't just not show up," he pleaded. Mama sighed. "Mama, we're friends." His mother looked at him for a long minute. "All right," she said finally, "but I'm coming with you." Together, they left the cupboard and darted along the kitchen baseboard. William was strapped to a bouncing canvas sling in the doorway, careening madly from one side of the doorframe to the other, his feet intermittently thumping the ground. "Watch out," Mama warned as they skirted treacherously close to his fat, flailing legs. "Ah!" squealed William, a long string of saliva dangling from his chin. As they hurried down the hall, they heard voices in the living room. Mrs. Pompaday sounded annoyed. "Of course he isn't ready. You said 4, Carl. That's what we planned on." 2 pages. James called nervously from his bedroom. "It's okay, Dad. I just need a few more minutes." Marvin looked at his mother. Carl was here already? James must be in a panic.
"No problem," Carl said sheepishly. "I didn't mean to interrupt anything. I finished early today, and I thought if we got to the Met earlier, that would give James more time."
"More time for what?" Mrs. Pompaday demanded. "Isn't the art lesson at 4:30? That's what you said."
"That's right," Carl said easily. "It's not a big deal. I'm ready whenever you are, James."
Marvin and his mother crawled under James' closed door and waited at the edge of his rug, hidden by the cotton fringe. The boy was hunched over his desk, his head in his hands. They could hear him talking to himself, his voice muffled. "Oh, where are you? Where are you, little guy? Oh, where are you? Where are you, little guy?" His shoulders shook. "I haven't seen you in days. What am I going to do if you don't come?" Marvin looked at his mother, horrified. "Mama, he's crying." Mama frowned. "Well, I'm sure he's upset, but he'll pull himself together. You'll see."
"James, almost ready?"
Carl's voice echoed distantly from the living room. James looked around, his eyes wet, his cheeks flushed. He wiped his nose furiously with the back of his hand. "Yeah, Dad, just a sec." He stood up slowly and lifted his jacket from the closet doorknob. "I don't get it," he mumbled, biting his lip. "Why didn't you come back?" "Mama," Marvin cried, "he can't do this by himself." Mama shook her head firmly. "Marvin, we already discussed this." "But James is my friend." "Darling, he's a human. He can't be your friend. You come from different worlds. Why, you can't even communicate with each other." "But we can, Mama, we do. Not by talking, but in other ways. And besides, that's not the only thing that matters." Marvin groaned in frustration. Why didn't Mama understand? The most important thing in a friendship didn't have to be said out loud. James put on his jacket and gazed forlornly around the room. "I know you'd be here if you could," he whispered into the air. "I hope nothing happened to you." "Mama," Marvin was beside himself. "Look at him." The boy picked up his ink set, turning the navy blue pen case over in his hand. Marvin could see the 3 gold letters on the top. I can't draw, not the way you can. I can't do it by myself. Marvin pictured James alone in Christina's office, faced with the blank paper and the tiny, perfect Dürer drawing. He looked hard at James, at his pale, worried face, the sad slump of his shoulders. He thought back to the disastrous birthday party on Saturday, the loud, indifferent boys, the scolding Mrs. Pompaday, who always seemed vaguely irritated by her son. People like James weren't treated right by the world, Marvin decided. The quiet ones never were. They were doomed to be jostled, bullied, and overlooked because they didn't know how to take up space for themselves, to insist on their own share. And now James was about to lose the one thing that had finally given him the attention he deserved. No, thought Marvin. He stared at the boy, sending every ounce of his affection and loyalty pulsing through the air between them. You're not alone, he thought. You have me. As soon as he thought it, Marvin knew it was true. He turned to Mama, suddenly determined. Mama, he needs me. I can't let him down. You and Papa always tell me to be a good friend. Well, of course we do, darling, but a good friend is someone you can count on no matter what. He watched as James took a breath, squared his shoulders, and started toward the door. I'm going with him, Mama. I have to. He can't do it without me. Marvin, Mama protested. But Marvin was already scuttling out from under the heavy fringe of the rug. He rushed up the door to the brass knob, where he positioned himself in plain view. Oh, darling, his mother cried. James stopped in his track. Hey, you're here, he yelled. The door swung open. For heaven's sake, who are you talking to, James? Mrs. Pompaday demanded. James gingerly reached for the knob, his hand almost touching Marvin. Marvin climbed onto his fingers and quickly crawled under the cuff of his jacket. Nobody, James mumbled. Well, don't do that, dear. It's odd. Resting his hand on the doorframe, Carl winked at James. Let's go, buddy. Got your ink set? Yeah, Dad, I'm ready. Be careful, Marvin heard his mother call from far below. He poked his head out from under the knit cuff and waved at her to show he'd heard. He could see James's wide grin, and he and his father strode through the apartment to the elevator, then out of the building into the gray winter afternoon.